Hey Katie.
Hey Sarah.
Great to meet up with you again, here on Mozart Snapshots.
Thanks, it's great to see you too, as always.
Considering that this little brunnen in front of us looks like Mozart and that this square is called Mozartplatz, I guess that this place has a special connection to Mozart.
You could be right, because this is definitely a young violin playing Mozart. However, this is not the reason why I wanted to come here to this beautiful little town of St. Gilgen on Wolfgangsee.
So what's the reason then?
Because we are going to visit the house in which Mama Mozart was born.
Great idea, because everyone's always talking about Wolfgang, Nannerl and Leopold. So it's nice to talk a little bit about Mama Mozart as well.
That's what I thought, because let's face it, without Mama Mozart, there would have been no little Wolfgang.
True, so when was Mama Mozart born?
She was born on Christmas Day in 1720, and her name was Anna Maria Walburga Pertl.
What a wonderful Christmas gift for her parents.
That's right.
Did she have any siblings?
Yes, she was the second surviving daughter of Eva Rosina and Wolfgang Nicholas Pertl, and her sister was 1 year older than her.
Were either of her parents musical?
Yes, her father was quite a skilled musician, and he had studied law at the Benedictine University in Salzburg, but in order to help pay for his studies, he actually sang and gave singing lessons at the monastery school of St. Peter's Abbey. And then in addition to that, he had appeared as a singing soloist himself.
But I gather music was just a hobby for him.
That's right, because he had quite a successful practice as a lawyer. He had worked in Vienna, and then he moved back to the Archbishopric of Salzburg, where he became superintendent of the district court here in St. Gilgen.
And her mother?
Her mother was also from a musical family, because her father and her first husband were both church musicians.
And did Mama Mozart have a happy childhood?
Actually, she had an extremely difficult childhood because her father had become very ill, which forced him to take a quite low-paying job. And then he died when she was 3, and that left her mother, and her sister homeless and destitute.
And what did they do then?
They had to move back to Salzburg, where they lived on her mother's widow's pension, which was just 8 florins a month, and that was nearly impossible to live on. And so consequently, the 3 women took jobs doing sewing and lace making.
That must have been really hard for the 3 women.
It was very hard, and especially because her sister actually died at the age of 9, and Anna Maria herself was often sick and bedridden.
Did she have any formal schooling?
Nobody really knows whether she did or didn't, but in any case, she definitely knew how to read and write, and she learned all of the things that were important for a woman in those days, like cooking and cleaning and sewing, preparing homemade medicines, and of course taking care of a house.
And with all those skills, she married Mozart's father.
That's right, because by that time she had gotten healthy and turned into a very beautiful woman. And apparently she and Leopold were one of the handsomest couples in all of Salzburg.
I can imagine that. So how did they meet?
Nobody really knows, and it would be interesting to find out because, you know, for such an ambitious man, it's actually rather curious that he married a penniless girl.
It must have been out of love.
I think you're right.
So were they also happy together?
Yes, they had a very happy and loving marriage, and she rarely ever contradicted his wishes, and she went about her wifely and motherly duties with good nature, and so consequently they had a very happy household.
So what was she like?
Well, she was smart, well-informed, with a wonderful sense of humor, which we know from many letters, and you know, she had a lovely, calm temperament, which was a great contrast to Leopold, and pretty much everybody just really liked her.
Was she also musical herself?
You know, we know so very little about her because while Leopold made sure that all of his letters were saved in order to document his son's life, most of hers were lost or, you know, thrown away.
What a shame.
It is a shame, but to get back to your question, she pretty clearly was musical, and we know this from various letters that exist still between her and Leopold and Wolfgang. For instance, and there's one letter where Leopold is asking her to please find a piece of music, and he describes it using very musical details like, you know, the one with the violin and double bass staccatos. And then there's another letter from Wolfgang where he writes to her that he's so excited to finally come home because he's looking forward to hearing the Pertl Chamber Symphonies.
The Pertl Chamber Symphonies, as in Anna Maria Pertl.
Exactly. So she was the only person in the family named Pertl. So if these were for real, then she was the one who composed them.
True. Well, if she hadn't been musical to start with, she probably learned a lot just by listening to the others. I mean, let's face it, all those hours traveling together in a carriage, it would have been nearly impossible for her to tune out what they were saying. I mean, they didn't have earphones in those days.
That's very true.
Anyway, while the others were practicing in all those various cities, do we have any idea what Mama Mozart was doing?
She was probably doing the same thing that every other mother was doing. She had to take care of her family, and she was probably in charge of all the packing because she writes in one particular letter from Munich that she's so tired of having to pack and unpack, and she notes, of course, that Wolfgang is of absolutely no help.
Typical kid. Sorry, I have to interrupt you. There's a really cute fountain over there.
Yes, this fountain is actually supposed to be Anna Maria.
How sweet.
Unfortunately, we don't have any photos of her, so we don't know exactly what she looked like, but I think it's a very happy-looking little girl.
But to get back to Mozart, he was quite close to his mother, wasn't he?
Oh, he adored her. You know, from all of the letters that they exchanged over the years, it was clear that they had a very warm, humorous relationship.
She also probably acted as a buffer between him and his father, every now and then.
Yes, I think so too. And by the way, we are now at the house in which she was born. Today it's called the Mozart House, St. Gilgen, because it's a museum. And do you want to know something else that's interesting about this house?
I'd love to.
So not only was Mama Mozart born here, but Mozart's sister Nannerl lived here with her husband for 17 years. And by the way, by that time, she was no longer called Nannerl anymore, but Maria Anna von Berchtold zu Sonnenberg.
Katie, so do we know in which room Anna Maria was born?
Yes, she was actually born upstairs because that's where the family lived. Down here was the part of the house in which her father worked. And so actually this was the district court. And for instance, this beautiful cross hung in the district court. This is an original. And then when we go through into this room, this was her father's office.
And how long did they live here?
They actually lived in this house for 8 years. And then when you cross over the hall, we come over to this room, which was the Verhandlungszimmer, or the room in which the trials took place.
And do you know why the women had to leave once the father was dead?
Yes, because actually they only were able to live in this house because he was the superintendent of the courts. And when he died, then obviously they had no more right to live in this house, and so consequently they really were left homeless, and that's why they had to go to Salzburg. And now there's one more little room, and it really is little. You know, people were smaller in those days. So in this room, if somebody was found guilty, they were locked up here for a few days until they would then be transported to a large jail, or a larger jail, in Salzburg. And so this room was actually divided up into two. So there could have been one guilty person over there and one guilty person over here. So, and now we can go upstairs and see the room where Anna Maria Pertl was born. And so these are the rooms in which young Anna Maria Mozart spent her first 4 years. And right out the door here, she had an absolutely beautiful view of the Wolfgangsee.
Inspirational.
It is. And do you want to know something else that's interesting? This man right on the wall in front of us is the Archbishop Schrattenbach. And the reason that he is in this room is because he was a very good friend to the family of Nannerl's husband. And actually, he stayed in these rooms on many, many occasions.
Incredible.
Yes, because these were actually the rooms that were reserved for the Archbishop. So, I hope that you enjoyed it today, and bis zum nächsten Mal.
Bis zum nächsten Mal.